Good evening, KZFR. This is Writing on Air. Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by the Chico Theater Company, creating live theater since 2003. The Chico Theater Company presents It's a Wonderful Life, the musical, from November 24th to December 17th. Performances at 7:30 on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and a Sunday matinees at 2. Tickets at chicotix.com. At the box office and by calling 894-3282. Share the magic of live theater at the Chico Theater Company. Well, how's it going, everyone? Hopefully everyone's having a pretty good night out. I'm having a swell night. I love the rain, personally, so this has been fantastic for me. We have some guests with us tonight. My regular co-host is here, and someone by the name of Jan Mathews. She is a local poet, and she'll be talking about her book tonight, Often Overlooked, which is her first collection of poetry. She's lived in Northern California her whole life. After earning her BS at UC Davis and her teaching credential at CSU Chico, she now teaches middle school science, that's probably
not.
Probably
not at all.
Science in Orland, a rural community near her home. She's an avid birdwatcher, kayaker, and craft enthusiast. She has traveled domestically and abroad and hopes to retire early so she can travel the world with her husband, writing about new places, experiences, and connections along the way. Well, how's it going?
It's going great. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And Brendan, how you doing?
It's great to be here, and it's always nice to have authors in the studio.
Yes. Oh, man, this has been kind of the goal of this entire station has been to have people to come in. So I think we've only had only a handful of people that have written that have actually come on and been part of the show. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your book. First collection of poetry. Man, that's
yeah,
cool.
It's definitely been a labor of love, and it's been a long time coming. Some of the pieces in here are older than my children, and some are brand new, just out right before I hit that publish button.
Man, that's so cool. I have to ask too. I'm a huge kayaker. What is one of your favorite places?
Gosh, my absolute favorite place has been the diversion pools, and they've been sadly out of commission for quite some time now.
Yes.
So
those are the ones up here in
just below the spillway. So hopefully they're getting repaired and I can get back on the water.
Yep. All right. Well, we have 30 minutes here, so we'll hop on in. I know you brought a collection of poems with you. I think we have a few lined up that we're going to go through. Any ones you want to start with?
Sure. I'll start with one of the anchor poems.
Okay.
This is one that was written back in my undergrad days at UC Davis. So if you are a former Aggie or you're an Aggie now, just know this was walking past Poudre Creek on one of their many bridges.
Oh, okay.
This piece is called Potential. Brown bag bobbing lazily in the lake. Without its crispness, its crackle, its crunch, now harbors water instead of a lunch. Lively in its lifelessness, the bag rolls in the waking wind. Its swirling silken shape caught by the breeze, revealing roundness not possible before.
I love this one so much when I read it. Oh, I get this like within the first part here, this like stagnation and drown sense from it, and in the second part you get this like really like obviously there's life being breathed into this thing, and I was kind of feeling like nature is giving life to this thing, like it's breathing into the bag almost.
Absolutely. You never know what you're going to see until you look. I have a professor friend at Chico State who says the more you look, the more you see, and I've definitely put that into my writing as much as I can. Sometimes it's those little things that you tend to overlook.
It's so good. I feel like even a nice kind of comparison, I guess, is I highlighted revealing roundness. So almost as if the bag rolls in the waking wind, as if it's taking a breath.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was such a beautiful part. I love that so much.
Well, and when you think about a lunch bag, they're creased and they're square.
Yeah.
And this one wasn't anymore.
No, totally different shape. I love this piece so much.
Thank you.
Any comments from you?
It's wonderful. It's this, and I like the fact that it's this perfectly clear image you've created that's just so easy to picture in your mind. Because at what person hasn't seen something like that before, and everyone can just kind of picture that in their head really clearly. This brown paper bag rolling along the ground.
Yeah. I think it's really important, too, as an educator, I try to get my students to see things in a way that's their own. And sometimes the things that you expect to see aren't what you actually see. And getting students to know that that's not always the right answer just because that's how they usually look. So providing them with some things that are a little different than they expect.
Different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Personification at its best. Well, we'll keep on rolling and head on to the next piece, I guess.
All right. Well, you mentioned that I am an avid bird watcher, and
Yes.
that is true. This is another poem that was written quite a bit ago, a few years ago. One of my favorite places to go locally is Yanoseko, which is just off the road right through Dayton.
Okay.
I make a turn and there's a platform, and it doesn't look like much, but if you're me, you see a lot of things. So this piece is called Sandhill Crane.
All right.
Standing alone amid the assembly of coots and ducks, she looms above her web-footed associates, skinny neck extended, chin held up, superior but awkward and inelegant, feathers angled clumsily in the breeze, ruffled and unkempt, unmanageable and beyond her control, an unnaturally long bill, sharp and capable of stabbing fishes, frogs, and her own belly. Legs spindly twigs, elongated toes to support her heavier frame. Her stillness veils her inability to swim with the crowd. Her silence bullies them, quacking and cooing and laughing carelessly with one another. She blinks and crouches just before the hunter's sharp retort scatters the paddling mob. First to flinch, last to leave. She aims away from the flock, toward a stand of trees. She takes to the air, transformed in solitude, shedding her self-consciousness, relaxing into the current. Lifted, feathers sleek, slender neck extended, ending in a perfect piercing beak. Toes point to her origin. She stretches out with the horizon. A loud, rattling karoo echoes. She is heard. A hidden beauty suddenly seen. She soars exquisitely above cypress spires. She points and splits the wind.
I like that piece so much. I feel like it's if I could define like a word for it, like regal almost.
She's definitely regal once she takes to the air.
Yeah, it really has that kind of ugly duckling story going on there. Just standing there in the water, the crane does not look like much.
Awkward
does not
and
look
elegant.
Awkward, spindly, does not look at home, does not look right. Then when it takes the air, it's this beautiful, majestic thing.
Absolutely. Again, this is a shout out to my students. You'll find your way to fly.
There we go. I think for me, my favorite, I was reading through this before we came to the show, my favorite line in here is relaxing into the current. Because there's this idea of motion, because there's a current there, but there's this idea of going with it, but also at your own pace, because it's not stressful, it's not there's no strain in it, it's just this is a natural part. It's just because this crane has become part of the environment, part of this direction. It's such a beautiful thing. I love that line right there.
Well, thank you. I think it's important. I think part of the reason I write is because so many people struggle. And struggling to find words is one thing, and struggling for other things, a place to live, a job, a passion. So I try to keep my struggles small, and struggling to find those right words. When you find them, it's magic. And giving you you don't know me, and you're just meeting my work, for you to glean that from this is a huge gift for me.
Oh, thank you. That's what I like to hear for this show, because I'm going to clip that and put it in for like every single show at the start of this, because we made this show for people like you, writers. Obviously, not that you're some special breed, different from all of us, but people who have words that they want to share. And this is a platform for this. So to hear like you say that, it means so much to me. I thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. Any other words from you, Brennan?
I just love this. Like that very last line, cutting the air, just hints so much at how this bird standing there in the water is not meant to stand there in the water. It's meant to fly, and that's what it's built for, and that's what it's meant for. And it's one of those things, different perspectives. It does not look right at home. it does not seem right standing there, but once you fly, you understand what it's meant for and what it's there to do.
I love that you picked that last line, because I know right now Margot is listening. She's my editor. And this is a line that we went round and round with for about 3 years, from the time that I first was putting together a collection until we published. And it was one of the very last minute changes, that very last line, and Splits the Wind. And that was definitely a collaborative effort. So wow. I'm glad it's working.
It's a wonderful way to finish the poem.
Excellent.
I want to take a side note there too. Something else we've stressed for the show, we want to encourage people to write. That's one thing that we always say for this show. Like, we want people who are just starting out, come and bring your stuff on the show. And so to hear you say that this has been a poem that's been going for like 3 years, that you've been editing and kind of tweaking here and there, and it wasn't finalized until just very recently. For anyone who's listening and hasn't written before, that's what writing sometimes can be. If it's not right first, that's fine. Come back to it later.
Absolutely. That's what Post-it notes are for.
Yeah, yeah.
I have quite a collection.
Oh yeah, that's so cool to hear that. It's a craft. You have to keep working at it, keep going, and don't be discouraged if it doesn't come out right the first time.
Nope, it is a process, and sometimes you think you have the right words or the right line break, and you do something like read it out loud and think, no. So.
For anyone who's listening, take heart, because that's what we're going for.
Keep writing.
Yeah, for anyone that's ever discouraged, you can sometimes find editors' marked up versions of famous books, and you will see everyone struggles, and behind every good writer is a very good editor.
Absolutely, and a lot of just writing down what you think when you think it. So if you are listening out there and you're thinking about writing, or you're writing and not thinking, start thinking about it a little bit more. Grab a word. I hear words all the time. This room's covered in posters, and there's, Murmuration National Tour is coming up, Murmuration Nation Tour, and I know what a murmuration is, but not many people do. So that's a word that will find a way into a poem for me.
And if you can talk, you can write.
Yes. Yes, there are devices now that you can actually speak directly into, and they will write for you.
That's true, yeah. You've no excuse. Get out there and start writing, and then come back and submit to the show so we can have you on here. Well, we'll head into your next one then.
All right. I think I will go to, let us see.
They're all so good.
I think I'm going to read Dormancy.
All right.
This is another middle-aged poem. It's not the oldest and it's not the youngest. It is one that has had quite a bit of time in the editing pile. So, Dormancy. Probably perfect for the season that is upon us. Bulbs. A most extraordinary gift. They look like turds, all grungy and brown and dead-looking. So you bury them, since they look dead, and cover them over with soil and something perennial and pretty, and accidentally forget the presence and how hard the soil was packed when you dug down and hid those ugly, useless, undeveloped clods. And you praise the pretty, the blooms that come already on the stems, so easy, so nice, pleasing and immediate, their colors covering the overturned soil instantly as you stick them into the dirt above forgotten bulbs. On the coldest and most desperate day, when the quick colors have left, fading faster than they came, something is there, poking, peeking, searching, seeking, some hint of heat, a ray of sun on this bitter cold day, calls it out. That gift, suddenly so strong, bursts right through, shoves aside the dirt, pushing down roots and reaching up, defying gravity, lifting itself out into the air. That bulb forgets it was ever forgotten, and it gets big. And then, in the dead of winter, it blooms.
I love this piece so much, too. I don't think I've said that. I haven't loved one of your pieces yet, so we'll just keep that rolling. My grandmother used to give me, a long time ago, I guess my mom and my dad should give it to us, bulbs like you're talking about. I don't remember what type of flower they were, but this first start A most extraordinary gift. They look like turds, all grungy and brown, all dead looking.
Have you ever gotten like a gift like under the Christmas tree for my birthday? I have a January birthday. I opened this thing up from my grandmother, and I was like, "Oh, look, it's clumps of dirt."
Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Appreciate this. No, exactly what you're describing. I remember getting ones. We'd get them in little boxes, and they'd have a bright picture of a flower on top, and you'd open it up, and it would just be like, well.
So disappointing.
Is this the right gift, or was this exchanged at some point? I like this feeling of coming into your own at the end too, where the bulb forgets that it was ever forgotten and gets big. It's like this thing that was buried deep down, because you could make the case that it's also discussing about burying something in yourself very deep, and then eventually it starts to kind of blossom out, and eventually it becomes so defying gravity so well and lifting itself out into the air. It just takes over. It becomes what it's naturally meant to be, no matter the season.
That's the great thing about writing poems. Some people will read this, and gardeners might read this and think, "Oh, this is great. This is about my garden." And someone who's on a self-discovery path, or publishing a first book or something, could read something completely different into it.
Which you have your first book too. What was the name of that book again?
Oh, that would be Often Overlooked. And you can pick it up at Amazon.com. Hopefully I'll have some local vendors picking it up quite soon.
Yes.
I've gotten a couple of hot tips as to where I should inquire. So
what a great segue, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead, Brennan.
Yeah, and I love this because I experienced this. Because I grew up with tulips in my yard, and they just magically come out at the end of every winter. They're just, you forget that they're there, just like this saying, that those bulbs buried deep underground, and they really do not care how tight the earth is above them. They will find a way out.
Just like those things that you have buried deep inside you, they find a way out, and hopefully it's pretty like a flower.
Once it makes its way out.
I like the start too. The very first line, well, second line, I should say. Bulbs is the first line. A most extraordinary gift, and then it kind of becomes this like just gross, like, oh, look at these dead-looking things, blah blah blah, and it kind of goes, and there's some equivocation. It goes on, and then it ends with that really strong, like, doesn't matter the time. This is out now. This is it. There's strength right at the beginning, and it kind of develops, and there's more strength at the end. I like that. It's kind of bookended by that. Really
Thanks.
Well.
Sometimes I think I'm seeing a theme here in the pieces I've chosen, that things aren't always what they seem.
Yeah. For your students out there.
Absolutely. And you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, really, if we're going to go and talk about, things that have been said a lot, but my cover's pretty, so you can judge a book by that cover.
Yes. I would agree on that one. What was the name of your book again? Just one more time?
That would be Often Overlooked.
Often Overlooked. Okay.
Yeah, J.E Mathews.
J.E Mathews.
And the title really does fit the pieces you're presenting to us, that every theme that you've got here so far is something that is often overlooked by people.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I have a piece in the book that's about a duck that I encountered on a path who had been killed and was in pieces. And most people, if they notice it at all, would have a very different response to it than I did. So,
oh man,
the more you look, the more you see.
I'll read through your book pretty quick here after we leave from this show. Well, that was Dormancy. I think you have a couple more lined up too.
Sure. Since we're talking about plants, let's keep with the plants.
Ooh, I know which one this is.
Yeah, this one is called Progeny. I am a mom. I have a 20-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter. So I think with that little bit of information, you can decide if this is about blackberries or not. Progeny, blackberries, finger pricking, picking and choosing. The ones that don't cling are ready, the sweetest of them all. When they pull your baby out of your body, there's interest, kindness, and expert advice. Pain is quelled by the sweetness of medication and new motherhood. Feeling the pain, tasting the sweetness, remembering. The plant protects with vicious thorns her precious progeny. I steal them, juice staining, punctured fingers, pulling them from parents' grasp, feeling the sweetness, tasting the pain. When your baby is pulled out into the world, out of his childhood home, there are thorns and no sweetness, There is no quelling this pain, no interest from experts, only thorns, and the remembering, the sweetness, and the feeling, the pain.
Oh, man. I like that one a lot, too. I read this, like I said, before the show, and I like the jar that happens with the blackberries. You're talking about them, the sweetest of them all. When they pull your baby out, I was physically like, whoa. Oh, that was such a jump. And that's what you're going for, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're there.
Yeah, that immediate like, whoa, we're not talking about that at all. This is something entirely different. And you go down and you go, well, this has been a bittersweet thing. There's the medications they're masking this, but I mean, there's so much more to it. New motherhood, feeling the pain, tasting the sweetness, remembering. And it keeps going. You talk about the thorns that happen throughout that. I'd imagine there's ups and downs for childhood and parenthood.
You were a teenage boy once, yes?
At some point, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
We can ask my parents about that and see what they say. No, I love the juxtaposition you have going there between the thorns of basically a ripening fruit in your children. That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really nice comparison how you can switch back and forth, and the story really just actually flows, how you can really compare, those prickly bits on blackberries to the ups and downs of life and the sweetness that reward, and also the pain that often comes with that as well.
Yeah.
Yes, raising children is not pain-free.
Right.
It is, however, quite rewarding and can be very, very sweet.
Yeah. And I see, too, the second part here, the second stanza would be when they pull your baby out, which I'm going to guess birth, obviously.
Correct.
And then there seems to be almost a second type of birth later down, too, which is like the leaving of the house, in a sense, which so beautiful. Baby is pulled out into the world, out of his childhood home. And there are differences there, too, that you're saying. There are thorns, but there's no sweetness because there's no pills masking that pain and stuff.
None at all.
Yeah, it seems like almost that was the harder one because there's nothing to deal with that. They're gone.
No experts.
And all you can do is remember the sweetness from before.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a little bit about blackberries, but more about being a mom.
Blackberries are cool, too. I mean.
Well, and kayaking is in my favorite place. In the summer, the banks are just loaded with blackberries. And if you're on the hiking trail, the deer get most of the good ones. But if you're in a kayak and you're a little daring, you can reach out, and I have received more than my fair share of prickles and scratches, and I can reach that one, and boy, that mama berry bush has something else to say on many occasions.
Yep. I like the part, too. I steal them, juice staining punctured fingers, pulling them from my parents' grasp, or pulling them from parents' grasp, feeling the sweetness, tasting the pain. That idea of staining, too, as in they become a part of you more than just external, but it kind of gets down in there and it becomes like you can never get that juice off you for weeks.
It's a couple of days.
Yeah, and it's the same for a child. Like you just don't have them and they're gone. Whatever. It lasts pretty much. It's consistent.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing, and growing up, obviously, I've never been a father, but I've done both of these things. I've left home. I've seen how that's affected my parents, and I've also gone picking blackberries, so I know how almost dangerous it can be when you get some of the older bushes with the much larger thorns.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think we have time for one more.
Excellent.
We can squeeze that in there, I think.
All right. This poem is called Canning.
I like this one, too.
Canning. So we went from blackberries, and now we're going to go to plums. So the first plum is the sweetest, pulled ripe from the branch. Leaves shade the picker, sun blazes, warm juices ooze, drop onto bare feet. Greedily she picks more, picks them all, gobbles some now, then washes, peels, and pits these blessings, one at a time, savoring a sliver or two, satisfying the processor, preserving the taste of now for later. Rings and lids jangle against boiling glass on the back burner, while plums and pectin and sugar simmer up front. Heat and time transform perfect fruit into dozens of jars of jam. Cooled, set up on paper-covered pantry shelves for colder days. First snow, and the first plum is the sweetest, picked right from the shelf, leaves the picker ambivalent, a flavor reminiscent of sun, warm juice and bare feet. Clouded by time, their absence sour in her mouth, cold in her bones. By the 17th pint jar, plums sicken her. A winter drought, another season without, the living, fresh fruit, leaves the picker yearning for something more than canned blessings. She cannot swallow one more mouthful of this past sweetness.
I love that one too. I love this idea of the overindulgence at the end almost, or that times change and things aren't always as sweet as they were, or too much and stuff. Oh, I like this piece so much. I used to can with my mom and my aunt peaches, because they had peaches in their yard too. So all the things that you're describing here, I think in the early part, rings and lids jangle against boiling glass. Instantly, I have a memory of when I did that when I was little.
Yeah, if you've ever canned fruit, it is definitely a labor of love. And I love putting things up.
Yeah.
But boy, sometimes when you have a bountiful harvest, there's a lot of jam. A lot of jam.
This is probably my favorite piece that you've submitted today, and it's because it's this kind of grasping onto the good times and trying to preserve that for as long as possible, and then you get to your winter, your drought, and you realize those things I was trying to hold on to. Maybe I've held on to a bit too much.
Maybe so. This was actually written during a summer where a friend of mine was undergoing chemotherapy, and one of the things that still tasted good to her was fruit. So peaches and plums we ate a lot of that summer, and she wanted to freeze some so she'd have them for winter. And we made jam instead, and I ate jam without her by the time winter came. So there's a deeper bit to this canning, and yes, sometimes the sweetness lingers, and sometimes it's just not the same.
Yeah. What a beautiful piece.
Thanks.
Yeah.
She was a beautiful human.
Well, I hate to end us on that note, but I think
That's
it's a good
okay.
note. Yeah. I love these pieces that you've submitted so much, and I think we should have you back on the show again.
Well, thank you. It has definitely been my pleasure. Hopefully we can do it on a time when it's not quite so rainy.
Yes.
As much as you love the rain, it makes it traveling a little difficult.
Yeah. Well, plug your book again. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for listening to KZFR. This has been Jan Mathews plugging her book, Often Overlooked, currently available at Amazon, by J.E Mathews.
J.E Mathews. Well, thanks for coming. This has been Writing on Air, and for those of you who want to submit or be part of the show like Jan was tonight, you can reach me at write.onair@gmail.com.
Yes, that's write.onair@gmail.com. Please submit. We love hearing your pieces. We love reading them. We would love it if you came in and read them yourselves. We love talking with the authors. So please.
And it's not scary.
No, it's definitely not.
No, it's very mellow.
This is as casual as it gets.
It's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You have made the show tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Harrison Daily Wright Accountancy Corporation in Chico. Harrison Daily Wright provides certified public accountants specializing in accounting and bookkeeping services, auditing, tax prep and planning, management support, and services for nonprofit organizations and more. To reach Harrison Daily Wright, call 895-1209. Have a good night, everyone.